Welcome to Imola. Welcome back to the Porsche Carrera Cup Benelux. It's round 3 of the 2026 season, and it is by far our biggest away day of the season. We're a little south of the Benelux region at the Autodromo Internazionale Enzo Edino Ferrari, the Imola circuit, of course, for so long home to Formula One racing, revered as one of the best circuits in Italy, therefore one of the best circuits in all of Europe and perhaps the world, with a fearsome reputation and a penchant for throwing a spanner or two in the works. This venue is always brilliant in Porsche Carrera Cup competition, and it'll be no different here in the Porsche Carrera Cup Benelux series. Coming into this weekend, it is the defending champion leading the points, Jaap van Lagen, on 86 points, 10 clear of Alexander Reimann in his EST1 entry. But going into this weekend, it could be pivotal. Certainly, Jaap van Lagen has looked like the form driver of the grid, but certainly hasn't had it all his own way either. In fact, his first win of the season came last time out in the second race of the weekend on the DTM support package at Zandvoort. We've had 2 winning results for Alexander Reimann in the Quanloop EST1 Racing Cup. He came second in the first race at Spa, but he was behind a guest driver in the form of Alex Hart. Therefore, he still gained the full championship points. You see there the conditions for the circuit in the low 30s, which is certainly a relief to some drivers, I'm sure. We were into the 40s at Imola a week ago, as we were in quite a lot of mainland Europe. So I think the fact that conditions are cooler may favour some drivers out here today in this race. So then the car's rolling. It'll be 30 minutes plus 1 lap of racing here in Porsche Carrera Cup Benelux, and it's Milan Marchak who starts this one from pole position. He's alongside Jurt Muller in the PG Motorsport entry. Then it's championship leader Van Lagen along with Alexander Reimann. So our 2 current championship contenders share a row. Kjelte Hoefner and Jan Seifert are next on row 3, and all MDM Motorsport row 3. Frank Porter in 7th place. He's along with Artur Peters in 8th position. Then it's Jörg Bredveld in 9th position for Team Race Art. He's alongside Carol Kret in the first of the JW Race Service cars. Henry Wheeler in the A-Works by Katana Tools car starts on row 6 along with David Jivok. Then it's Mace Muller, the younger Muller brother, the older Muller brother, the PG Motorsport entry along with Jakob Twarog. Then it's Yanni Kakala on row 8 along with Jesse Polderdijk, Ali Jafali and Makoto Haga, the guest driver, rounding out the 18 cars that are set to start on the grid. Of course, Ali Al-Jafali, the brother to Rima Jafali. We've talked about that a little bit this year. But on pole position is Milan Marchak, and what an opportunity it could be for Milan, who had a middling start to the season, I think it's fair to say. 6th and 10th positions were his finishes at Spa to begin the season. But then at Zandvoort, he really came on strong with a first place and a second place finish that has really propelled him into the championship conversation. 21 points behind Jaap van Lagen, the points leader, and still, of course, with 8 races left to go, including these 2 at Imola, then Assen, Hockenheim and Zolder. The back half of the season, we will cross the threshold into the second half of the season at the conclusion of this weekend's action at Imola. It feels like we just got started, but already we're bearing down on the halfway marker. The cars rolling towards the starting grid. Of course, it will be a standing start here in Carrera Cup Benelux, and that means that clutch control is all important, getting that launch that you need. And Jaap van Lagen, traditionally very quick out of the gates. What can he do from the second row of the grid? And of course, as everyone really starts to ramp up speed on that run down to Tamburello, speed is going to be, or rather space is going to be a factor for all parties. It is a fairly narrow run down to that first corner, and there'll be probably well into fifth gear by the time they start to brake for Tamburello, maybe high end of fourth gear. These do have fairly long gear ratios, these Porsche Carrera Cup cars, these Porsche 992.1s. Of course, we'll see the 992.2 introduced for the 2027 season here in Carrera Cup Benelux. The lights are out and we are racing. Green flags, and it is a poor start there from the 22 car. That rally crossing for Porto Ruiz, that's certainly not what he wanted to start his race. It's side by side for the lead, and the leader is going to be Milan Marchak, is it? Yes, it is. He was very, very loose going into Tamburello, but somehow he kept the car on the straight and narrow, and the pole sitter leads the race. In second place there, that's Jaap van Lagen, who's moved up at the expense of Muller. And Frank Porte did somehow hold on to that. I thought that he might well end up looping in the midfield as he went off onto the grass on the run down to the first corner, but thankfully he did manage to keep that car pointed in the right direction. Marchak and Van Lagen have pulled away just slightly as this race has got started. Joep Muller in third position then, ahead of the German Seifert in the 998 car. And then it's Alex Ryman down to fifth position. So while Van Lagen has moved forward from the second row, Ryman has actually dropped back just a little bit. No harm, no foul, I suppose, this early in the race, but forward momentum is always going to be the preference for anyone, of course. Muller up there in third overall, the current leader among the rookie class runners by some way. He's got a nice buffer of pro class drivers between himself and the next rookie. We saw side by side there outside of the top 10. We see gravel being kicked up there by Muller. Now, I was going to reference the fact that Joep Muller, as the leading rookie with quite a buffer, maybe he doesn't need to worry too much about these overall positions, but I'm forgetting that key factor that is the racing driver mentality. He wants to not only retain an overall podium, he wants to move forward from there. Oh, and he's off the circuit. Not him, sorry. Seifert is off the circuit. And that's going to open up some opportunity here to Ryman, to potentially heel to Höfner in the 919 car there as well. But just, I think, stepping out at the apex. I don't think there was any contact or anything like that for Seifert, and just did a very good job to keep the car pointed in the right direction, but that was certainly a little bit of a heart-in-mouth moment. This, of course, for the pro-class podium, as it were. Fourth overall, more importantly. To the inside there goes the 63 machine. That's Peters up against Zajvok. Zajvok with the inside line aboard the 77 car and forces his way through into what is second in the rookie class. Those two fighting it out for P2 and P3 in that category respectively. And it looks to me like Frank Porte is struggling a little bit there. He's not got the run really up the hill towards what is now known as Gracini Bend, formerly Variante Alta. Is there something amiss with that 22 car? Because it just looked like it had no momentum up the hill. We've already seen that car go rally crossing. So Zajvok has moved through into second in the rookie class. In terms of the overall order, he's in his matching his best performance of the season, P7. Overall, we had a bit of a wide out moment there from the driver of the 18, actually, that was. That was Henry Wheeler, the American driver, I think just losing some spots there. In his first season of car racing, having debuted in Porsche Sprint Challenge Southern Europe at the start of the year. He actually rather cannily got himself some track time here at Imola last week in Porsche Sports Cup Swiss. In what were 40-degree plus conditions. I think it got up to 43, 44 degrees Celsius at one point. So he'll be thankful that it's practically festive down in the low 30s this weekend. And look at that, to the inside he goes as everyone's kind of fighting each other here for what is 12th position overall. Yanni Kakala, the Pro-Am leader, running P12, leading this queue of cars. He's got Mace, Muller, Wheeler, Jakob Twarog all behind him, as well as Polderdijk and Aldrafali, and then Hager a little bit further back at the rear of the field. But that scrum from 12th on down is looking very competitive, albeit perhaps a little too close for comfort. At the front of the field, Marchak and Van Lagen doing a great job. Oh, that's a spin for the... Is that the 18 car? No, in fact, that was... in fact, yes, it was. I think that was Wheeler in the 18, wasn't it? There's Twarog still running. Yes, it was the 18 that's dropped. Wheeler just taking too much curb there. Didn't look like he got any contact, but that's easily done. Some high curbs here at Imola. And indeed, it is Wheeler that's dropping through the field. And it is Wheeler who's going to have some work to do to, frankly, not finish last in this race. Alexander Ryman pressuring for 4th position here, wants to get himself back towards podium contention before this race is through, but the current obstacle to that is Seifert. Jan Seifert, the 28-year-old German. Very experienced, and oh, Alex Ryman in a spin. Loops it out of Tosa. Again, that looked like an unforced error to me. Maybe there was a little bit of paintbrush, but I don't think it was enough to facilitate or point to someone for that spin. And that is costly in the championship. That could be second in the championship points gone for Alex Ryman, especially with Milan Marchak racing in the lead. This could be a pivotal error once all is said and done for Ryman. I think he's stayed somewhere around that pack of cars behind Jani Kakala. He did rejoin. Meanwhile, Jaap van Lagen is looking a little bit feisty. He senses an opportunity, of course, especially if he wins the race, to quite heavily extend his championship points lead. And indeed, with how things are looking at the moment, Marchak is going to end up being his closest championship competition. He's currently 21 points behind Van Lagen in the standings on 65 points. But never mind that. If the 96 driver can get the elbows out and hold on here, that's going to be the primary objective. I don't think the maths is going to matter to him. Potentially a little bit more to Jaap van Lagen, who I think, with all of his experience, has the capacity to just think things out. I think he will be thinking, okay, I've heard that my primary championship contender has had a spin. And with that, I can maybe try and challenge who will be my primary championship contender. Maybe I'm giving him too much credit and he simply wants this race lead. Out of the Aqua Minerale section they go. Looked like there was some bodywork down there. Looked like potentially a front splitter just offline to the inside. Oh, Van Lagen a little bit more aggressive on the curbs there, and you can kind of see the benefits and the losses there, because of course it was a slightly shorter line, but then he got a nice armful of opposite lock off the corner as the Michelin rubber bounced across the tarmac out of the final corner. And it's really a joy to see Van Lagen at certain points. You can just tell that he is such a Porsche specialist with how he rotates that car through some corners. Just full faith in where the tyre is going to bite, where the grip is going to come from. Over 25 years in this sport, 20 years of racing in Porsche machinery. A race winner in years gone by in the Porsche Super Cup, in the Porsche Carrera Cup Deutschland. And of course, our reigning champion now here in Porsche Carrera Cup Benelux. What a season he had in 2025. Is once again the benchmark so far in 2026. Jelte Höfner under scrutiny here from Frank Porte, who does seem to be back up to full speed. I had my concerns that maybe that car wasn't quite on song, but he now runs in what is 7th overall. He is, though, under pressure from Karol Kret there in the 55 car, the Polish driver. One of the two Polish entrants under the JW Race Service banner, along with his former co-driver, Jakub Twarog. They've previously shared Carrera Cup machinery in long-distance racing. Still, with how Porte Ruiz is going offline sometimes and seemingly a little bit slower down some of these straights, I do wonder if that car is A1, but he's holding on, as is Jaap van Laken, as he slides it rather beautifully there into the first apex of Rivazza. Ready over 1/3 distance in this 30-minute plus 1 lap race. Blasting by. The speeds they reach on that run towards Tamburello, I think in the 280-ish km/h range. Down the straights with less aero, less drag. These Carrera Cup cars can break the speed traps a bit quicker than the GT3 cars that run in the European Le Mans Series here this weekend. They are really impressive cars, and they're only going to get more impressive next year with the introduction of the 992.2 package, which has a bit more downforce, a bit more drivability as well. Worth noting that the current fastest lap of the race is with the 77 of Jivok. So David Jivok, in 5th overall, might yet make some more progress. He's hunting down Seifert. There's Alexander Reimann on the recovery drive. That's him moving up to 11th position at the expense of Mace Muller. Muller, who's now got himself around Yanni Kakala, incidentally, as well, and has started to drive away from the Pro-Am Finn. But Reimann then back into 11th place. Will want to make his way as far up the top 10 as he can. This race really is a salvage job at this point for him. Get what points you can. There's Jakub Twarog running a bit wide, and Al Jafali in a spin. Just the latest driver to ask a little bit too much of these rear tyres. It's not the coolest weekend ever, but certainly it seems that drivers struggling a little bit for rear grip, and I think, again, that just comes down to how you have to attack these curbs for lap time, but how attacking these curbs a fraction too much will introduce too much lateral load, and the next thing you know, with all of that weight on the rear axle, the car becomes a bit of a pendulum. 44 leading the battle for 14th. That's still Twarog in 14th place. Polderdijk behind him. For Twarog, his best finish of the year, a P17, so he's well on course to best that. Of course, we had a few guest starters to pad the field out at Zandvoort and Spa. There's Porte Ruiz's off-track moment, and he wasn't really forced out wide. He kind of just chose to do it himself. Jelter Höfner ahead of him didn't have the best start. It seemed as if Porte Ruiz said, okay, fine, I'll take to the grass. Which is certainly bold, but he survived to tell the tale, the Andorran driver, Frank Porte. Getting some replays here of these early lap moments, and there was a bit of a push there to the 998 car that led to that off-track moment for Seifert. We've seen a good amount of dust and gravel being kicked up around the field. And it was also a bit of close run driving between Wheeler and Mace Muller that sent Henry Wheeler into a spin, but and Reimann's was contact. Okay. Definitively can say that that was contact for Reimann that sent him into a spin. Didn't see the first part of that, looking at the timing screen when that happened live, but yes, you can say definitively that that was contact. Jaap van Lagen there was right alongside Marchak for the race lead. As we came back to live pictures, out of Villeneuve, I think potentially Marchak may have lost some time. There has been some argy-bargy. There have also been some, as I've alluded to, unassisted spins. But yes, there have been a couple of more hip checks, usually frustratingly when I've been looking at data. But yes, there have been a couple of moments of paint exchange in this race, and let's hope that this lead battle does not go the same way. Marchak and Van Lagen. To this point in the race, just over halfway through the 30-minute time duration. To this point in the race, it's all been very respectful. But when that gets to 2 or 3 minutes to go, will we see Van Lagen roll the sleeves down? Potentially yes, and potentially even more yes, if we see Muller close in from third position. Muller, I don't think is improving, is he, versus them? Let's take a look at the last lap times. In fact, yes, he took quite a lot of time out of them on the previous lap. 1:46.1 for Marchak, 1:46.3 for Jaap van Lagen, 1:45.2 for Jurt Muller. So Muller is bearing down on this situation ahead of him. Van Lagen set the fastest first sector of anybody on this lap. A bit of a statement of intent there as he bears down. For Jurt Muller, this is going to be by far his best overall result of the season as things stand. He has had best finishes so far of 9th in both of the Zandvoort races. He's yet to win in the rookie standings, but he is well on his way to doing so at the moment, with a comfortable advantage over Gaivok, who runs second in the rookies, about half a dozen seconds further back. Al Jafali has made his way past Hager at the back of the field, so that's been a change of position already. Al Jafali, of course, recovering from his spin. And Hager, who has been a bit of a European traveller, the Japanese driver, in Porsche circles, has done a bit of Carrera Cup Italy, has gone down to the Southern European Winter Series, the Porsche Sprint Challenge Southern Europe. And now joins us for a second time this year in Carrera Cup Benelux, but he's back down to P18 at the expense, or rather, courtesy of Al Jafali, who's gotten through. Meanwhile, again, attacking the curbs with gusto, both Marchak and particularly Van Lagen, who just always looks so confident. There's Yannick Hakkela leading the Pro-Am order in 13th overall, but I really feel as though Jaap van Lagen isn't far from a challenge. Oh, and Hager's had a moment. Coming out of the Rivatsa corner, out of the final turn. And just attacking that curb too excessively. Oh, and a fairly hefty hit as well to the front corner. Will he have some suspension damage? Hopefully no radiator damage. The car actually looks fairly straight and true as he puts it back into the pit lane, but certainly the responsible thing to do is to get that car checked over before driving any further. Because even though there was a lot of tyre padding at that point and a fairly gentle hit, it still was a lot of speed suddenly wiped out of the car. Here we see the battle for 15th and 16th positions. That is Polderdijk and Wheeler. Wheeler, of course, recovering from his moment where he was in side-by-side action and ended up spinning out up at the top of the hill at Grissini / Variante Alta. Polderdijk holding him off for what is 15th overall. Perhaps more importantly to both of them, it's 6th in the rookie standings as well. 55 car of Karel Kret in 9th position, under some pressure here from Redveld. Redveld, another rookie. Again, some damage here. That's on the run down to the first corner. That's the fastest point of the circuit where there's some strewn Porsche bodywork. I'm not sure from whom. Oh, Jaap van Lagen. Jaap van Lagen has a problem. He's got a puncture, has he? Yeah. Oh, no. Now, was there an incident? No, that tyre was already going down. I wonder if that's at all connected to the damage, the bodywork that we saw strewn on the run to Tamburello. Did he hit that at the start of the previous lap? Well, come what may, Jaap van Lagen, who was going to profit massively with Alexander Ryman down in 11th place, everything has changed. The 69 car is not going to reach the flag in this race by the looks of it. Yellow flag's out, no safety car. Although I do feel like we're perhaps not far away from seeing it, with bodywork down with a stricken car on the circuit. Milan Marchak then, the time of immense scrutiny has come to an end. He's now driving out there on his own. Jörg Muller has inherited second position. It would be his first win in the rookie class. It would be his first overall podium if things hold on like this. Oh, Hjelte Herfner looks to me like he's got quite a lot of rear wing damage. Yes, he's missing part of his rear wing, Hjelte Herfner, on the right-hand side. We go to safety car. But how exactly do you shed about a third of your rear wing? What incident would have happened that Herfner lost a section of his rear wing? The safety car comes out. Here's Ryman getting a look at him bouncing across the curbs at Tamburello. He did a good job to keep that steering wheel straight in his arms. And I say arms, not hands, because that will have been a full body effort to keep that car pointed in the right direction. There you can see that bodywork being hit by several drivers. That's one of the splitters from the front of the car. I'm not sure whom that splitter once belonged to, but clearly there's been some front-on-rear contact somewhere. I'm not sure what that secondary body part is, but certainly a marshal needs to, once the field is neutralized, pick that out, because I dare suggest that there could be some connection between the Van Lagen puncture and that bodywork. Of course, Hager, who was in the pits, he's actually continued on in the race, and I wonder if maybe he came out of the pits and found himself in a bit of harm's way as everyone else came firing by. He is back out there. Trying to see if we can spot a car sans a splitter. I didn't look at Van Lagen to see whether he maybe had front-end damage. Doesn't look like it. It was that left rear puncture that was the factor for him. A fair bit of Stuttgart origin carbon fibre and other body parts of miscellaneous material around the circuit. It's been a bit rough and ready. We've seen some door-to-door. We've certainly had a little bit of damage for some around the circuit. Van Lagen watching on as his car gets recovered to a safe position, but could this be championship defining? Certainly, it's going to have a huge pendulum effect on the series and the points table. Now, as it stands, Ryman running 10th overall. He will score just 6 points, so he won't assume the championship lead unless he can move on up. In fact, Milan Marchak is on course to take the championship lead and leapfrog both parties here. He came into today 21 points off Van Lagen. He'll be on 90 points. In fact, 91 points, because he got the pole position point as well. He'll be on 91 points if things finish as they currently are. Ryman will be on 86, tying, or rather, sorry, Ryman will be on 82, so he'll still be behind Van Lagen, who is on 86. But Van Lagen, as it stands at least, is going to lose a championship lead. But he's worked very, very hard to attain so far through his metronomic consistency, which is what won him the championship last year. He's been on the podium for every race this season. He took 2 third places at Spa, albeit he scored points for second since we had guest driver Alex Hart up at the front of the field there. And then at Zandvoort, he got his first proper second place of the season and his first win of the season, and that momentum looked really strong. Unfortunately, it doesn't appear to have carried forward into Imola. He was right on the bumper of Marchak. He was looking very aggressive against Marchak, and I thought that potentially at this point of the race, in the final 5 minutes, we'd really start to see some fireworks, but instead, Van Lagen has unfortunately been demoted to the role of spectator. On the plus side, if you can call it that, he is going to see some racing. Safety car in at the end of this lap. Marchak will have a challenge anew here. I don't think Milan Marchak has ever raced wheel-to-wheel with Jurt Muller. In fact, they might have done at Spa potentially, but certainly they've been on different planes so far this season. And now Jurt Muller has the opportunity to not only consolidate his lead in the rookie class, which I grant you has gone down because Jivok is there in 4th position, only Seifert between Muller and the rest of the rookie podium as it stands. But I think Muller's going to be a lot more interested in trying to get around Milan Marchak for an overall win. Armchair psychology, yes, but that tends to be how drivers think. Now, we are going to have just 2 more laps of racing here. The clock is going to be under 1 minute 40 when they cross the start-finish line. Marchak still hasn't pulled the pin. Is he going to wait until the exit here of Rivazza, or is he going to wait even longer than that? Looks like we're back up to speed now. But it will be 2 more laps of racing to go. The clock will hit 0 as he finally pulls the pin. Didn't even do so at Rivazza. But this will be the final lap of timed racing, and then there's +1 lap on the end of that. So Marchak pounds down the main straight towards Tamburello, and Seifert is challenging for second overall in the 998 car. He can't get it done. Auto Ruiz on the back of Kjelter Höfner as well. Höfner, who must have a little bit of negative feedback in the steering wheel with some of his rear wings severed. Muller, Seifert, Jivok fighting for second position, and that's rather allowed Marchak to err away from this situation. For Marchak, I think that restart went just about as well as it could. The Ajith Red Ants Racing driver at the front of the field. PG Motorsports, Imola in second position. Seifert in third place. Jivok in fourth. It's 4 teams in the top 4, 5 teams in the top 5 with PG Motorsports, Muller, MDM, Seifert, GP Elites, Jivok, and Team Racearts, Peters in the top 5 as we see some dicing there. That's Alex Ryman, of course, trying to make his way back up the order. He's in 9th place. He's challenging Karol Kret for 8th place here as they run down towards Rivatsa for the penultimate time in this race. Karol Kret goes defensive. Can Ryman make up another point or two? It would be so important to just minimise his loss to the driver who will most likely be the championship leader in Milan Marchak, and indeed to take a little bit of advantage for Van Lagen's DNF. Jelter Höfner again with bodywork flying off the car, and Porte Ruiz sensing an opportunity there, bumper to bumper racing between them. Can Frank Porte find a way through? The Andorran with a good run out of Tamburello. Someone off track in the back of shot there. I think that was Tuareg. It was Tuareg who went off track at the rear of the field. He's going to lose a couple of places as a result of that. Porte trying to go around the outside. Ryman getting involved in some wheel-to-wheel action there, as well as that Bredveld. Yes, it was bouncing across the grass there on the exit of Tosa as they run side by side. Ryman side by side still as they head down to Aqua Minerale. And Ryman loses out to Bredveld. That's really a shame for Ryman. Last thing he needed to do was drop places on this last lap of the race. Marchak is on his way to the checkered flag. Muller looks comfortable in second place ahead of Seifert. Jivok looks less comfortable in second within the rookie class and 4th overall. Here's Marchak, though, making his way through the final corner. Race hard with Jaap van Lagen in the early phase of the race. Ajith Red Ant Racing will celebrate as their driver crosses the line for a second win of the season. Milan Marchak, the Polish racer, has done it again here in Carrera Cup Benelux, and with a non-finish for Van Lagen and a 10th place for Alex Ryman. That is a championship lead gained by Milan Marchak. It'll be fractional, but the championship lead will now be in favour of the Ajith Red Ant Racing driver. The 96 with its second win of the season, its 3rd consecutive podium. And with the dramas for Van Lagen, it will be a championship lead for Marchak. A word as well to Jurt Muller. 2nd overall, his best rookie finish of the season. His best overall finish of the season, 2nd overall. His first podium, his first top 5 even this year. So that is a huge step forward for Jurt Muller. And with it comes his first rookie win of the year as well. A lot of best results of the season, actually. Jan Seifert also with his best result of the year so far. His best before today was 6th place last time out at Zandvoort. He finishes on the podium for the first time this year. I think that's his best result across any Porsche category he's ever competed in. He's done some Carrera Cup Germany. He's been ever present in Porsche racing for the last several years. David Jivok with 4th position and 2nd in rookie. He'll be thrilled with that. That's his best finish of the year. And Artur Peters with his first top 10 of the season. Not only is it a top 10, but it's a top 5 as he finishes 5th overall and rounds out the rookie class standings. There's Yanni Kakala, who's won the Pro-Am category, 13th overall ultimately for the always entertaining Finn. But certainly, if you'd asked me to predict our top 5 at the end of this one, it would have included Jaap van Lagen. That much is obvious. I don't think it would have included the exact parties in the exact order. But unpredictability is one of the great strengths of Carrera Cup racing, and we've seen that once again from the Carrera Cup Benelux competitors. Milan Marchak has really drunk in that in-lap. A win at Imola has to feel so special. Consider the names that have taken great victories here in the past. It's such a special facility. Marchak, rookie winner Muller, Seifert, Jivok, Peters, your top 5. Hjelte Herfner with half a rear wing in 6th position ahead of Frank Porte-Ruiz, Karel Kret, Jörg Bredveld, and Alexander Reimann, your top 10. Reimann will remain behind in the championship compared to Van Lagen. He'll be 3rd in the championship, but he will be closer. Henry Wheeler was 11th place. We get a look back then at the highlights of this one. Porte-Ruiz rally crossing as the race got started, trying to get himself around the slow starting Hjelte Herfner. Somehow kept it pointed in the right direction as he went up through the gears on the grass. Jaap van Lagen was under some pressure there from a very sideways Jörg Muller as the race kicked into life. Lots of side-by-side action through the early corners, the early apexes, some heading off the circuit as they tried to find some room. That was Mace Muller who went rally crossing on the first lap of the race. Side-by-side for 3rd position. And Jörg Muller was having none of it. Jan Seifert wasn't going to drive around his outside. A bit of a hip check there between Mace Muller and Wheeler. Sent Wheeler into a spin. Up at the Gracini Bend, as it's now known. And this was Alexander Reimann getting tagged into a spin by Hjelte Herfner. Now that answers how the rear wing partially disassembled on Hjelte Herfner. I didn't see that live, that the car got tagged there. Rear wing on rear wing contact, and Hjelte Herfner the damaged car for the rest of the race. And I dare suggest there may be some looking into that contact between himself and Alex Reimann. Jafali having a spin there. Ali Al-Jafali. Not the only one to do it either. Hager having a big spin. Was very lucky actually to simply drive away from that. He had some damage, some bodywork down on the run down to Tamburello. Not sure whose it was. Not sure whether it was connected to this puncture from Jaap van Lagen. But Van Lagen's tyre going down with less than a third of the race to go. And that would lead to a safety car period. Upon resumption of the race, Hjelte Herfner was under pressure from Frank Porte. But Porte would not find a way past Herfner, who retained 6th position, as there was some rally crossing further back from Jakob Twarog. But at the front of the field, Milan Marchak with a race win that secures him the championship lead going into race 2 here at Imola. With Van Lagen non-finishing and Reimann recovering only to 10th place, Milan Marchak, the Polish racer, has taken a big step forward in the championship consideration. Yanni Kakala, winner in the Pro-Am division, rookie winner and 2nd overall, was Jörg Muller. We look to the podium. You see there some of our key partners